Here's a travel truth nobody puts in the brochures. Your passport might say freedom of movement, but your melanin level can still determine your freedom of treatment. In 2025, while we're busy arguing about flying cars and AI taking over the world, some countries are still stuck in the Stone Age when it comes to basic human decency. Today, we're diving into the 15 countries where Black travelers still face discrimination. And before you start typing "not all people" in the comments, save your energy. This isn't about painting entire nations with one brush. It's about painting a realistic picture so Black travelers can pack their bags with knowledge, not just souvenirs. Because the only thing worse than bad vacation photos is a bad vacation experience you could have avoided. Number 15. Mexico, where hola doesn't always mean welcome. Mexico, land of tequila, tacos, and surprisingly complex racial dynamics that make a telenovela plot look simple. You'd think a country that celebrates Dia de los Muertos would be more welcoming to all skin tones, but apparently some folks missed that memo. Here's the tea. Mexico loves to celebrate its mestizaje, that beautiful blending of cultures, but when it comes to Afro-Mexicans and Black tourists, the love isn't always mutual. In 2023, reports of police harassment targeting Black travelers in Mexico City became so common, human rights groups started keeping scorecards. Not exactly the kind of statistics you want to lead in. The problem? Some areas treat Black visitors like they're automatically undocumented migrants, which is about as logical as assuming everyone wearing a sombrero is a mariachi singer. Rural areas and border regions can be particularly, let's call them, unwelcoming, because discriminatory doesn't fit the vacation vibe. But don't worry, it gets more internationally embarrassing. Number 14, Italy, where Renaissance art meets medieval attitudes. Italy, birthplace of the Renaissance, home of pasta perfection, and apparently some attitudes that haven't evolved since the Colosseum was considered modern architecture. You'd think a country that gave us the Sistine Chapel would appreciate all of God's creations, but apparently Michelangelo's diversity memo got lost in translation. Here's what's happening. Italy's dealing with a serious case of "we're not racist but" syndrome. While they're busy perfecting their pasta recipes, some Italians are still working on their basic human decency recipes. Nigerian street vendors getting brutally assaulted, Black travelers being followed in stores like they're carrying plague instead of credit cards. It's given very colonialism never-ended energy. The northern regions like to act all sophisticated, but scratch the surface and you'll find attitudes older than the Roman Empire. And don't even get me started on football matches. Apparently monkey chants are still acceptable crowd participation in some circles. Speaking of places with ancient attitudes, number 13, Greece, where democracy was born but equality still needs CPR. Greece, birthplace of democracy, home of the gods, and apparently some mortals who still think melanin determines worth. You'd expect the land that gave us philoxenia, love of strangers, to actually practice it, but apparently that philosophy comes with terms and conditions. Here's the reality check. Greece is dealing with its own economic drama, and when times get tough, some folks start playing the blame game with immigrants, and by extension, anyone who doesn't look like they stepped off a classical statue. Black tourists report being misunderstood for refugees, which leads to treatment that's less welcome to paradise and more papers, please. The irony is thicker than Greek yogurt. This is the same country that built the Parthenon and gave us philosophy, yet some of its citizens still can't figure out basic human respect. Tourist areas like Mykonos and Santorini are generally better, but venture into smaller towns and you might get stared at like you're a mythological creature. But at least Greek gods were diverse, unlike some modern attitudes. Number 12, Japan, where politeness has a color limit. Japan, land of sushi, cherry blossoms, and paradoxically, some of the most polite discrimination you'll ever experience. It's like getting rejected from a job interview, but they bow while doing it and give you a perfectly wrapped rejection letter. Here's the cultural complexity. Japan is 98% homogeneous, which means seeing a Black person is rarer than finding a parking spot in Tokyo. This leads to the zoo effect. Constant staring, unauthorized photography, and questions about your hair texture that would make a TSA agent blush. It's like being a living, breathing tourist attraction, except you didn't sign up for the job. The discrimination is rarely aggressive. This is Japan after all, but it's death by 1,000 polite cuts. Refused entry to certain bars? Sorry, members only. Avoided on public transport? Oh, we're just, respecting your personal space. Housing discrimination? The apartment is suddenly unavailable. It's discrimination with a smile and a bow, which somehow makes it even more frustrating. And speaking of frustrating polite discrimination, number 11, Spain, where flamenco rhythms don't match human rights beats. Spain, land of passionate flamenco, beautiful beaches, and apparently some attitudes that are stuck in the Franco era. You'd think a country that gave us salsa dancing would be more welcoming to all colors, but apparently their rhythm is off when it comes to racial harmony. Here's the Spanish reality. Football matches have become racist karaoke sessions, with black athletes getting monkey chants like it's 1955. If that's how they treat world-class athletes, imagine how they treat regular black tourists trying to enjoy some paella. The discrimination ranges from being followed in stores to receiving service so slow you think they were moving in siesta time. Even in major cities like Madrid and Barcelona, venturing outside tourist zones can feel like stepping into a different century. But wait, there's more international embarrassment coming. Number 10, Egypt, where ancient pharaohs were black, but modern attitudes are backward. Egypt, home of the pyramids, the Nile, and some of the most legendary black pharaohs in history. You'd think a country literally built by African civilizations would treat black visitors like royalty, but apparently historical amnesia is more contagious than you'd expect.
Here's the pyramid-sized irony. Egypt is in Africa, yet somehow manages to have anti-black sentiment that would make a Confederate general proud. It's like hosting a family reunion and then discriminating against your own relatives. The cognitive dissonance is so strong it could power the entire city of Cairo. Black tourists report everything from aggressive haggling that borders on harassment to being treated like walking ATMs with legs. Street vendors see black skin and immediately think easy target, while some locals treat sub-Saharan Africans like they're from a different planet instead of the same continent. It's giving very "we built the pyramids but forgot the lesson about human dignity" energy. The worst part, being mistaken for a migrant or refugee, which leads to treatment that's less "welcome to the land of pharaohs" and more "papers please" and also your dignity. But at least Egypt's discrimination is geographically confusing, unlike our next stop. Number 9, Morocco, where gateway to Africa comes with a velvet rope. Morocco, the stunning gateway between Europe and Africa, where ancient Medinas meet modern attitudes that are, let's call them, still under construction. You'd think a country that's literally the bridge between continents would be more bridging when it comes to racial harmony, but apparently some bridges are still missing a few planks. Here's the Moroccan reality. Despite being an African nation, colorism runs deeper than the Sahara Desert. It's like they took the worst parts of colonial mentality and decided to make it a permanent feature. Black travelers, especially those from sub-Saharan Africa, get treated like they're carrying the plague instead of carrying tourism dollars. The discrimination ranges from being overcharged for everything, because apparently black skin comes with a tourist tax that nobody mentioned in the travel guides, to outright harassment from authorities. Police crackdowns targeting black migrants have become so common that even black tourists get caught in the crossfire. It's like being guilty of existing while black, which is exhausting and expensive. Marrakesh is beautiful, but try explaining that to someone who's being followed through the souks like they're a suspected shoplifter instead of a paying customer. Speaking of countries with colorism issues deeper than their history, India, where Bollywood loves fair skin more than fair treatment. India, land of incredible diversity, ancient wisdom, and a color complex so intense it makes a paint store look inclusive. You'd think a country with over 1 billion people would have figured out that humans come in different shades, but apparently math skills don't translate to social skills. India's relationship with dark skin is more complicated than a Bollywood love triangle. Fair skin is literally sold as a beauty ideal, which means black travelers get to experience colorism with the intensity of 1,000 suns. It's like walking into a country where your melanin level determines your treatment level. Black tourists report being stared at like they're exotic animals, photographed without permission like they're tourist attractions, and in some cases, outright avoided like they're contagious. The irony is thicker than curry. This is the same country that gave us concepts like unity and diversity and Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the world is one family, yet some of its citizens still can't figure out basic human respect. But at least India's discrimination comes with spiritual confusion, unlike our next destination. Number 6. Russia, where vodka flows freely, but acceptance doesn't always. Russia, land of ballet, literature, and apparently some attitudes that are colder than a Siberian winter. You'd think a country that survived the Soviet Union would understand something about equality, but apparently lessons didn't survive the transition to capitalism. Here's the Russian reality. Racism and xenophobia are more common than matryoshka dolls, and just as nested with layers of ignorance. Black travelers report harassment, profiling, and hostility that makes the Cold War look friendly. It's like they took the worst parts of nationalism and decided to make it a cultural export. Moscow and St. Petersburg might be cosmopolitan on the surface, but scratch that surface and you'll find attitudes older than the Kremlin. Black visitors get stared at, followed, and in some cases outright confronted by locals who apparently think diversity is a Western conspiracy. It's giving very, we built the pyramids but forgot the lesson about human dignity energy. The discrimination is often overt and aggressive, none of that polite Japanese-style racism. It's straight-up in-your-face hostility that would make a KGB interrogator blush. Speaking of countries with complex East meets West attitudes, Turkey, where two continents meet, but minds don't always connect. Turkey, the bridge between Europe and Asia, where East meets West, and apparently where modern attitudes meet medieval mindsets in the most confusing geographical mashup ever. You'd think a country that literally spans two continents would be more spanning when it comes to racial acceptance, but apparently bridges work better for land than for minds. Here's the Turkish reality. Istanbul might be cosmopolitan, but venture outside the tourist zones and you'll discover that diversity isn't always on the menu. Black travelers report being overcharged for everything, from taxi rides to restaurant meals. Apparently melanin comes with a built-in surcharge that nobody mentioned in the travel guides. The discrimination is often subtle but persistent, like being ignored by waitstaff who suddenly develop selective hearing, or being quoted different prices for the same items. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts, Turkish edition. And don't even get started on the nightlife scene, where some venues have unofficial aesthetic standards that coincidentally exclude black patrons. The irony is stronger than Turkish coffee. This is the same country that prides itself on hospitality, yet some of its citizens seem to have missed the memo about universal human dignity. But at least Turkey's discrimination is geographically confusing, unlike our next stop, which is just straight-up confusing. Number 5. Brazil, where Carnival celebrates blackness, but society still struggles with it. Brazil, home to the world's largest black population outside Africa, birthplace of samba, and somehow still a masterclass in cognitive dissonance. You'd think a country that literally built its culture on African foundations would treat black people like family, but apparently family dynamics can be complicated. Here's the Brazilian paradox. They'll put black bodies on stage during Carnival, celebrate Afro-Brazilian culture when it's profitable, and then treat actual black people like second-class citizens the other 364 days of the year. It's like hosting a Black History Month celebration and then discriminating against black people in the same building. Black travelers report being profiled by police, followed in upscale stores, and treated differently in wealthy neighborhoods. The discrimination is so systemic that even in a country where over 50% of the population identifies as black or mixed race, being black can still be a liability. It's giving very, we love black culture but not black people energy. Bahia might embrace its African roots, but try visiting São Paulo's fancy districts and you'll quickly learn that economic apartheid is alive and well. It's like Brazil took all the worst parts of American racial dynamics and decided to make it a national sport. But at least Brazil's discrimination comes with great music, unlike our next destination. Number 4. China, where ancient wisdom meets modern ignorance. China, the Middle Kingdom, economic powerhouse, and apparently the place where harmony doesn't include racial harmony. You'd think a country that's busy conquering global markets would have figured out basic human respect, but apparently world domination is easier than treating black people with dignity. Here's the Chinese reality. For a country that's supposedly all about faith, they sure don't mind showing their ugly side when it comes to black visitors. We're talking about constant staring, unauthorized photography, and housing discrimination so blatant it makes Jim Crow laws look subtle. It's like being a zoo exhibit, except the animals at actual zoos get better treatment. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed some truly horrific treatment of African nationals in Gwangju: evictions, restaurant bans, and harassment that made international headlines. And while the pandemic's over, the attitudes that enabled that treatment are still very much alive. It's giving very "we're a global superpower but still can't figure out basic humanity" energy. Shanghai might be cosmopolitan, but venture into smaller cities and you'll discover that Middle Kingdom sometimes means middle of the Dark Ages when it comes to racial attitudes. The irony is thicker than Beijing smog. This is the same country that talks about peaceful rise while treating black people like they're radioactive. Speaking of countries with superpower pretensions and Stone Age attitudes. Number 3. Poland, where history lessons about persecution didn't include self-reflection. Poland, land of pierogi, historical resilience, and apparently some attitudes that would make their ancestors who fought against oppression roll over in their graves. You'd think a country that knows what it's like to be persecuted would be more empathetic, but apparently suffering doesn't automatically create compassion. Here's the Polish reality. For a country that's been invaded, occupied, and oppressed throughout history, they sure are quick to oppress others. Black travelers report harassment, discrimination, and treatment that ranges from coldly unwelcoming to outright hostile. It's like they took notes from their oppressors and decided to become the very thing they once fought against. The discrimination is often overt and unapologetic. None of that polite, subtle racism here. We're talking about being refused service, verbally harassed, and made to feel unwelcome in ways that would make a medieval inquisitor blush. It's giving very "we learned all the wrong lessons from history" energy. Warsaw might be rebuilding its reputation, but it's still building basic human decency from scratch. The irony is thicker than borscht. This is the same country that produced heroes who fought against Nazi ideology, yet some of its citizens still can't figure out that judging people by skin color is wrong. And now for the most shocking entry on our list. Number 1. United Arab Emirates, where gold-plated luxury meets Stone Age attitudes. The UAE, land of impossible architecture, luxury shopping, and apparently attitudes that are more backward than their skyline is forward. You'd think a country that's trying to become the Switzerland of the Middle East would understand that discrimination is bad for business, but apparently some lessons are harder to learn than building underwater hotels. The Emirati reality is, behind all that glittering gold and luxury marketing lies a society where your passport color matters less than your skin color. Black travelers report being profiled at airports, discriminated against in nightlife venues, and treated like potential criminals instead of potential customers. It's like they built a futuristic society but forgot to upgrade their human decency software. It's luxury racism, and somehow that makes it even more insulting. But the story doesn't end here.
So there you have it, 15 countries where your travel experience might come with a side of discrimination you didn't order. From Mexico's confused geography lessons to the UAE's luxury racism, from Japan's polite prejudice to Brazil's cultural cognitive dissonance, the world is still serving up some seriously outdated attitudes in 2025. But here's the thing, and this is important. This video isn't about fear-mongering or travel shaming. It's about travel smarting, because knowledge is power, and power is what you need when you're navigating a world that sometimes judges your passport by your skin color. Every single country on this list also has beautiful, welcoming, incredible people who would be honored to meet you. The goal isn't to avoid these places entirely. It's to enter them with your eyes wide open, your research done, and your confidence intact. Because here's what discriminatory people don't expect. Black travelers who are prepared, informed, and absolutely unapologetic about taking up space in this world. They're counting on you being caught off guard, intimidated, or unprepared. Don't give them that satisfaction. Want to travel like a boss despite the haters? Here's your blueprint. Research is your superpower. Before you go anywhere, connect with Black travel groups online, read recent reviews from travelers who look like you, and know which areas to embrace and which to approach with caution. Confidence is your shield. Discrimination thrives on uncertainty and fear. Walk tall, speak clearly, and never apologize for existing in spaces you have every right to occupy. Community is your backup. Connect with local Black communities, expat groups, and other travelers. There's strength in numbers, and there's wisdom in shared experiences. Documentation is your defense. Keep copies of everything, know your embassy contacts, and don't be afraid to report discrimination when it happens. Your experience could protect the next traveler. Money talks louder than prejudice. Support businesses that support you. Leave reviews that help other Black travelers. And remember that your tourism dollars are votes for the kind of world you want to see. Here's the beautiful irony. While these countries are still figuring out basic human decency, Black travelers are out here living their best lives, building businesses, creating content, and showing the world that we're not asking for permission to exist in spaces anymore. We're just existing, and we're doing it fabulously. Every time a Black traveler shares their story, documents their journey, or helps another traveler navigate these challenges, they're not just traveling, they're changing the world one passport stamp at a time. And let's be real, this list is getting shorter every year. Younger generations everywhere are more globally connected, more culturally aware, and significantly less tolerant of their elders' prejudices. The world is changing, even if it's not changing fast enough. Social media has made it impossible to hide discriminatory practices. Economic pressure from tourism boycotts actually works, and every positive interaction between Black travelers and local communities plants seeds for better understanding. So here's what I need from you. If you're a Black traveler, drop a comment about your experiences, both the challenging ones and the amazing ones. Your story could save someone else from heartache or inspire them to take that trip they've been dreaming about. If you're not Black but you care about travel being safe and welcoming for everyone, share this video. Use your privilege to amplify these voices. Call out discrimination when you see it. Be the ally the travel world needs. And if you're someone who's learned something new today, hit that subscribe button and stick around. We're diving deep into the real stories behind the tourism brochures because the world is complicated, travel is political, and knowledge is the best travel insurance you can buy. Remember, the world belongs to all of us. Every sunset, every monument, every hidden gem, every five-star resort, every street food stall, all of it. Don't let anyone's limited mindset limit your limitless dreams. Travel smart, travel safe, travel unapologetically. And remember, you're not just a tourist, you're a trailblazer. Every stamp in your passport is proof that the world is bigger than its prejudices, and you're brave enough to explore it anyway. Now go book that trip, do your research, pack your confidence, and show the world what fearless looks like. Because the only thing better than dreaming about travel is actually doing it, discrimination and all. Hit that like button if this opened your eyes, subscribe if you want more real talk about travel, and share this with anyone who needs to hear it. The comment section is open. Let's start a conversation that could change someone's journey. Safe travels, world changers. The adventure continues.